YouTube. So I know it's been a little while since my last video. I want to say maybe a month, but I feel like I have a good enough reason. I've been vacationing, first in Georgia and then now in Montenegro with my dear friend Milica, whom you might remember from previous videos. She's also, whenever I edit things, she's the one who edits it for me. In case there are people out there who don't know where Montenegro is, because I've experienced that. It's in Eastern Europe, in the Balkans. But yeah, so in light of my vacationing, this being the first summer where I've traveled, I've flown on my own, I decided to make a video for you guys about how blind people travel. And Milica is a seasoned traveler, so I figured she'd be a good person to assist me with that. So, for blind people traveling, it's the same with, I guess, basically any disabled person traveling on their own. But of course, you know, we're blind, so we're a little self-centered in that aspect. So I was told before I flew that I should call beforehand and let them know that I was a blind person and that I'd be traveling and I'd need assistance, and just to let them know whatever assistance I needed. And I did do that, although Milica said that she generally never does that. She just asks for assistance. How does that go for you? How's that been?
I'm pretty good. Usually, first or second time, my mom decided to call anyway, and then they would come with a wheelchair, and I'd have to say that I don't need a wheelchair, and they would just feel like, I feel like they would feel like, is that confusing? No.
You feel that they would feel.
Exactly. That I need way more help, or that I'm way more fragile than I actually am, so they're way more careful if I just call, if I don't call, if I just get there and say, hi, I need assistance, then, you know, they just have to find someone on the spot, and I found that they don't usually make that much of a fuss about it. I just say, hi, I need assistance to the gate, no wheelchair. I decided to just start specifying because assumptions. And so yeah, the person comes and gets me. They take me through security, take me to the gate where I sit until pre-boarding for my flight is called, and then another person comes and gets me to the plane. Then the flight attendants take me to my seat, and they take care of me on the plane, and then when we get to our destination, they just call another person from the airport, and they come to pick me up off the plane and either to my next gate or, you know, out of the airport and to whomever I'm meeting. So I found that, well, because I usually go on pretty long, either 3-month or 9-month trips for school and such, I usually have to check my luggage. And as a blind person, I found out that you just kind of have to figure out what to do before you actually get there, because they don't know, the person who's helping you don't know what your suitcase look like, because they're in a different country than when you started. So I know a couple people who like to have little ID tags on their suitcase, or like little ribbon things that they hang on it to identify it. Or my favorite is just take a picture of it and show it to the person. Or what I did recently is get a very, very obscure owl pattern on my suitcase that cannot be mistaken for anyone else's.
That seems to be good enough. Seems to work well enough. Like I said, I use a dark blue ribbon, and my suitcase is like a dark gray, so people generally find it, or they've found it these past times that I've flown. I haven't checked my suitcase when I was going to Atlanta. It was checked without my knowledge. I think they misunderstood me, and it wouldn't go badly. It's just I didn't want it to be checked, because I've had an experience previously with my godmother. Our suitcase was on the wrong flight, so then she had to wait hours at the airport while my god siblings and I left with a friend of hers. And I feel like my sister, I don't recall if she's either just doesn't like hearing the bad stories, or if she's actually lost the suitcase, but you know, there's just so many horror stories surrounding checking one's suitcase. But, you know, back to actually flying. So the first time I left New York to head to Atlanta, my sister was able to acquire a gate pass, and she went with me, to the gate, and then someone assisted me onto the plane, and then the flight attendants were really nice. I had a layover, and when I got there, the first person that I was with, she, was a little awkward initially, but I explained to her that I only needed her arm, and that was fine. And she took me to the next gate to the connecting flight that would take me to Atlanta. And when the next person that came to assist me onto that plane, he brought a wheelchair, and I was like, well, I don't need it. He's like, oh yeah, I know that you don't, but I feel like it would just be easier. It would be easier for me or for you. But I didn't argue because I just, I feel like I only ever argue when I feel like, it's worth it, but I was just like, whatever, it's just this one time, so. We get onto the plane. That was actually a pretty fun experience. The flight attendants were really excited. They were like, do you read the Braille? And that was my first time receiving the flight instructions in Braille. I actually read through all of it just because I could. But they were really nice. And then I get to Atlanta, and again, I was given a wheelchair. Now, the Atlanta airport is huge, and everybody was like, well, you should just be happy to take it, blah, blah, blah. But it's not about whether or not, I'm happy to take the wheelchair. It's just the assumption that because I'm blind, I need a wheelchair. When I walked off of the plane perfectly fine, and we went all along flat surfaces. So if I walked down some stairs perfectly fine, I feel like I can walk along a flat surface well.
Yeah, usually, that's also kind of annoying me. They usually bring elevators, and you have to go to this obscure corner to get the elevator when I can just get the stairs. And usually they carry my stuff anyway, so if I had to carry it, there's a lot of people. But if it's an escalator or something,
That's also another thing. You'll go to the escalator, and they're like, wait, would you rather take the elevator? No, fine with the stairs.
You're standing there. I understand they want to do a good thing, but it's just, those two things just don't make sense.
I feel like especially if they ask you for your preference, and then they're still like, maybe the elevator would be better.
Yeah.
I think that's annoying. It's one thing, if they just went to the elevator, and you would just assume that maybe the elevator was just always there and blind, so I didn't see it. But on my way back from Atlanta to New York, I had a direct flight, and the guy who printed out my boarding pass, he called over a woman to assist me, and she brought over the wheelchair, and the guy was like, she doesn't need it. And the lady got so upset with him, she's like, well, why'd you make me waste my time? And she was just ranting, and then she came over to me, and she's like, oh, hi, sweetie, are you ready to go? And I was just like, oh, okay. I didn't know what to do with that, and so I was, led to a wheelchair waiting place or something for another person who came to assist me. Evidently, she's the person who they usually call in to handle the blind people because she's most comfortable with us.
Thanks.
Or that's how she phrased it, yeah. But so we get to the gate, and she checks me in, and she tells me to have a nice flight, blah, blah, blah. And so I'm waiting, and it's not long until pre-boarding starts, and she told me that someone would come over to assist me. Once they called pre-boarding for my flight, however, no one came, and I was just sitting there, they said for disabled passengers or passengers who need more assistance, so, I figured I was included in that, but no one came. So I was like, maybe I should stand and wait a few minutes or seconds or something. So I stood, no one came. I opened my cane, again, no one came. When they called the next group of boarding passengers, Sky Lounge or whatever they are, I started to get worried, and I was like, maybe I should just wander off in the direction I think they're going in. Maybe they'd be like, there's a blind person on the loose, let's see if she needs help. That did not happen. However, a fellow passenger came up to me and asked if I needed help with my bags, and I was like, no, just assistant, well, yes I do, but assistance getting onto the plane as well. So we were walking onto the plane, and then somebody else came over and offered to help her because she had both of our suitcases. So it just became like a group effort to get me onto the plane. The lady, she yelled at the flight attendant on my behalf, very pleasantly, but, still forcefully. My sister was like, you should write a strongly worded letter to Delta. I don't know if I will, because it could have just genuinely been an oversight, no pun intended. But it ended up working out, it worked out pretty well, and the flight attendant on the plane kept on assuring me that they hadn't forgotten me, and that someone from the ground crew would be assisting me once I arrived at JFK, which they did, and I appreciated that they didn't like push for a wheelchair. They didn't even ask if I needed one. They just saw that I was walking, and I was just like, oh, okay, well that's nice. Coming here to Montenegro, now this is my first international flight on my own, and my first international flight period, because this is my first time out of the country. But that also, like, they kept on pushing for me to have the wheelchair, and evidently, if I took the wheelchair, my sister couldn't get a gate pass to accompany me, and she, you know, wanted to see me off. So we constantly told them, you know, that I didn't need the gate pass, so we get to security, and I usually get to jump the line because, you know, blind and I have a cane, but the lady was like, oh, if you had a wheelchair, you'd be able to, but you can't. And my sister, of course, was very frustrated with that. But we couldn't actually really argue anything, considering, like, the only argument we had was that I'm blind, so therefore I should cut the line. However, the people doing the, you know, the security people noticed us, the ones who were actually checking, doing the metal detectors and checking everyone's bags and such. So they called me forward, and that worked out because I got to the plane just in time, yada, yada, yada. And, you know, so everything else was pretty smooth from there. Even in Belgrade, they tried to tell me, that's Serbia, by the way, they tried to, when I was at JFK, they were like, well, we have the ground crew, they'll have a wheelchair for you, and I was like, well, I don't need one, and the guy was like, well, how about we just keep it on file in case you change your mind? And I was like, but I don't need it, but I think he did anyway, but they didn't actually give me the chair, so that was nice, and yeah, so everything was pretty smooth, and we'll see if you've got any interesting travels tales.
Well, most of my travels were pretty smooth, except this one time my mom stopped me and found me sitting at like some waiting area, and they called the phone of the person at the desk right next to me, and I didn't know who that person was, nothing. She was just like, oh, your mom's calling. So creepy. And the second time, when, you know, you can't take drinks through security unless they're sealed, and I had a water bottle. I was coming from New York, and I was leaving, I had a layover in Paris, so...
Fancy.
I know, right? But I wanted my water bottle, and so I said, okay, I'll just fill it up when I pass security, and so the guy who was... First, he took a really long time to get there, I forgot about that. I was like, I need assistance. Oh yeah, they were also going to put me on like a flight that didn't work for me, and I was going to wait like an extra day in like some random airport. I was like, no, but that was like not really blind related, but you know, fun times. So he came, and I was like, okay, when we get through security, can you help me fill up my water bottle? And he said, yeah. Oddly enough, they didn't have water fountains that had like the water bottle extension thingy, or I don't know, like a faucet, so we had to do it very awkwardly. Whatever, that kind of worked, even though everything was already wet. He was like, I was like, all right, well, can I at least check that it's closed, because I was going to put it in the bag with all my electronics, and that bottle is really, really good. Like, it would not open. I've kicked it, I've rolled it off tables, I've used it many times, and nothing happened. And he was like, oh, it's totally fine, I got it, it's here, I'll put it in your bag for you. I'm like, 2 minutes later, there's water leaking out of my bag. My laptop, which was on, I just closed the lid, because MacBooks, and everything was in.
You should be a sponsor for Apple.
I should.
Guys, she's obsessed with all things Apple.
I am, but it's okay. It's okay.
Alright, go ahead.
Yeah, my laptop, my hard drive, so even if something happened to my laptop, my hard drive was in there, so I couldn't back it up from there if that got destroyed too. My CD drive, all my USB sticks, things, everything. But luckily, then I went on the plane, and I couldn't use my laptop for the whole time, because the mouse wouldn't move, and it started getting all hot inside, and everything, so I had to just hope for the best, and actually, luckily, 2 days or 3 days after, I couldn't hold out, so I turned it back on, and it worked, so yay, but you know.
That's really annoying that, you know, you couldn't check your own water bottle to make sure that it was closed, and just instances like that happen so often, or not often, but it happens.
People just think they know better, because...
Yes, because, you know, you're visually impaired, and
so you can't know.
Yeah. I feel like we could go on rambling about that, but that's a different subject, so maybe for a different video. But I head home tonight if I upload this video today, the 24th.
and I have an 8-hour, 45-minute layover in Belgrade, so that should be interesting. Maybe I'll like fulfill my dreams of like making a new friend, and I'll wander the airport with someone. So yeah, if it's anything interesting happens, of course I'll let you guys know. And if not, I guess you guys can be okay until I upload my before sophomore year video starts this weekend. I also have another project that's I'm working on.
Surprises.
Yes, Milica is helping me edit that, and I think at the end we'll maybe insert a few pictures rather of our vacation. It was quite fun, and yeah, I hope you guys are enjoying your summer. Bye.